Hi, this is Harish here. Welcome to DB2 LUW Tips and Tricks video tutorial part 15. In this video tutorial, I'm going to talk about how to configure LDAP for authentication and group lookup services in DB2. This slide talks about DB2 security mechanism. In fact, there is no native authentication or group lookup services built into DB2. DB2 relies on the operating system for this. By default, DB2 will use the operating system's authentication and group lookup services. You can also configure DB2 to use third-party system which will provide the authentication and group lookup services. So the third party can be like LDAP, GSS plugin or Kerberos plugin, etc. Now in this tutorial we are going to concentrate on configuring DB2 with LDAP. There are again two methods through which you can configure. One is called as a transparent LDAP, which is completely a different thing. We are not discussing that right now. We are looking at the LDAP security plugin. So there is a security plugin which can be configured in the DB2, which will interface with LDAP and provide the authentication and group lookup services. So that is what we are going to demonstrate. And authentication and group lookup can be configured independently. They are like two different things. So authentication is only like validating for this particular username, this is the password. That is the authentication. Group lookup is something like once for an authenticated user, what is the group name we have to associate with that authenticated user. That is the group lookup service, and these two can be configured separately. So something like authentication can come from LDAP and group lookup can come from OS, or group lookup can come from LDAP, authentication can come from OS. So either way, so there will be like 4 possible combinations. We'll demonstrate all the 4 now. These are the steps for configuring the DB2 LDAP. So first thing is you need to set up the username, password and group name in the LDAP server. And the second is we need to create and deploy the LDAP security plugin in the server. So a security plugin can be developed from the scratch and deployed in the server, but we'll be using more like a there is a sample LDAP plugin that is already available when you install DB2. So the location of the directory is SQLlib security plugin directory. You will have the LDAP sample plugins available, so we'll use that. And the name of the plugins is like IBMLDAPauthserver for the user ID and authentication, and IBMLDAPgroups for the group lookup portion. And it will be like an SO file in Unix machines and DLL in Windows machines. That's the second step. Then the third step is to update the DBM CFG parameters. So we have to tell to DB2 to use the LDAP authentication and group lookup. Otherwise it will be using the OS, which is the default one. So what we need to do is like update this srvcon_pw_ plugin parameter to the value IBMLDAPauthserver. This is for user ID authentication, and the value of group_plugin will be set to IBMLDAPgroups. This is for group lookup. And the next thing is we'll set up we'll also update diag level 4 so that the error messages will be for the LDAP related error messages will be logged in the DB2 diag log. Then the fourth step is to configure a IBMLDAP security.ini file. So this file is located in SQLlib cfg IBMLDAP security.ini. So this file is where we are going to say where our LDAP server is, which port it is listening to, which object class should be used for user ID password, which object attribute should be used for the user ID, like that. And even for group related information, so which user belongs to which group, for that what is the directory names and everything we have to set up there. Okay, let's quickly go into the examples now. Okay, first I'll show you the settings that is available in the current server. So this is the setting that we are saying. So group plugin, it's actually blank now, which means for group lookup services it will be looking up at the OS. And for srvcon password plugin, that is also blank, so it will be using the OS level only. And authentication is server, so server side authentication is happening. Okay, so the next thing is we'll show you the users, what are all there in the OS. Okay, so if you look at this, there are 2 users, DB2 inst1, okay, and there is also another user Penny with username pennyviat. Okay, and there is no user under the name Sheldon or Cooper or Scooper. So please note this, I'll come to this point later. So there is no user like this, okay. And the groups that these people belong to, okay, let me show you that as well. User and groups. So you can look DB2 INST1, okay. So DB2 INST1 user belongs to the group DB2 IADM, which is the instance owner group, okay. So INST1 is the instance owner, okay. And Penny Viat is one user whose username ID is Penny at the OS level, and that person belongs to the main group is users. The name of the group is users actually, okay. So it's not a sysadm group, okay, that's the understanding. So INST1 is the instance owner, so he should have sysadm access. Penny user will not have sysadm access. This is from a OS perspective, okay. So we'll just reiterate that. What is the OS user, password and the group? So DB2 INST1 is the username, DB2 INST1 is the password, DB2 IADM is the instance owner group, okay. And OS user is Penny, the Penny user's password is pviat, and the group name to which she belongs is users, okay. Now let's first look at the default mechanisms, like the user authentication and group lookup both happen at the OS level, okay. So for that I'm just updating the parameters to null and null, and starting the database instance, activating the database. So let me first do all these three. Okay, so it's activated. Now let's connect to the database using INST1 INST1. I'm just listing the tables, and also I am looking at the this query will get me what are all the authorities that particular user possesses, okay. Okay, so the connection is successful because DB2 INST1 is the OS user, so he is getting authenticated at the OS level using the OS services. And look at the sysadm access. Yes, he has sysadm access. He is the instance owner, so he'll have sysadm, he'll have dbadm and all that, okay. So that's correct, no issues here. Then what we'll do is we are granting dbadm access on database to a particular user named Scooper, but this particular user is not there in the OS level, okay. So let's just copy that. Paste it. Okay, the grant got successful and the connection also got reset, okay. Then the next thing to do is I'm just connecting to the same database using the user Penny with the password of Penny, which is at the OS level, and I'm again looking at the authority of that Penny user. So Penny user should not have sysadm access because she is not belonging to the DB2 IADM group at the OS level. Let's just copy that, paste it. So connection got successful, and if you look at sysadm access, it's not there. So she's just having the public access. If you look at that, she's only considered as a public group, okay. Okay, done. So this is the default behavior of the, we have demonstrated case 1, which is user authentication and group lookup both at OS level. Next thing is we are looking at user authentication and group lookup both by a LDAP plugin, okay. So for that, first we need to have the LDAP server started. So let's get into a terminal. Sudo su cd/init.d//stop. I'm just in case it is running, I'm just stopping and I'm starting the LDAP server. So the LDAP server is up and running. Exit, okay. Next thing is the username and password that needs to be set up, right? So the directory entries are already set up. I'm just using this LDAP search tool to list the usernames and stuff, list the directory name entries. Okay, so this has so many entries. So this is the root DN, which is O equal to Big Bang Theory, and under that we have OU equal to actors, that's a subtree kind of thing, and then under that we have UID scooper. So this is one user in the LDAP which we have granted DBADM access as well. Okay, and UID is DB2 INST1. Okay, that is also directory entry is available, and there is UID penny, okay, who is under the actors, that is also available. Then there is OU equal to groups, so this is used for the group lookup. So CN equal to DB2 IADM, OU equal to groups. So this under this DB2 IADM group we have three members, INST1, penny, and DB2 INST2. So this is how the LDAP user and group is set up. Okay, now the important thing to, so we'll reiterate. So LDAP username and password, there is a LDAP user scooper whose password is scooper. There is no group set in LDAP for him, and he is not a OS user also. There is a LDAP user DB2 INST1 whose password is LDAP DB2 INST1. He belongs to group DB2 IADM. This is set up in the LDAP in such way. And there is a user penny whose password is LDAP penny, and she belongs to DB2 IADM group as per the LDAP group setup. But the same user name is available in OS also, but that OS level user, the password is different, pviat, and she does not belong to the DB IADM group. Look at here. Okay, now we just need to update the appropriate DBMCFG parameters. So copy that, paste. So all the update got successful. Then we need to deploy the plugin. See, the plugin we are using the built-in sample plugin. So I'll show you where the location is. It's already available. Home DB2 INST1 SQL lib security 64. We are using 64-bit machine, so it is a 64 security 64 folder plugin. Okay, there is a link that is available, IBM server. So here all the plugins are available. So we are using the IBMLDAPauthserver.so. So since it is already available, we are not copying, or it's already there, so we are not. So if you are actually developing your own plugin, you have to deploy it in the server folder or the group folder appropriately. Okay, so it will be like an SO file. So similarly, the group plugin is also available under group folder. So IBM group, so IBMLDAPgroups, look at here. So that is also available. So that's the deployment of plugin. So once the deployment of plugin is done, then we have to edit the configuration file. Okay, we have to create a IBMLDAP security.ini file. So that is also already done here. That is available in the CFG SQL lib CFG folder, not the CFG cage, CFG folder. Actually IBMLDAP security.ini.sample will be there, so you can just copy paste to ini and you have to modify. So here is where we configure the LDAP server details, like for example, see LDAP host. So this is where the host name of the LDAP server, it can be some IP address or it can be some host name, and the default port number is 389 in which the LDAP host listens, and by default the SSL is the semicolon says it is like commented, it will be ignored. Okay, so by default it is not using SSL. And inet or person, this is the object class that needs to be used for the user ID authentication purposes, and this is the root DN. See, I showed you the directory entries, right? So this is the root DN. O equal to Big Bang Theory is the root DN, under which we have the user ID attribute UID. So UID is used for user ID purposes and for also auth ID purposes. So the SQL authorization ID is the auth ID attribute. These can be different also. I have configured this same here. Okay, now next thing is group related values. So for group related values, the object class is group of names. Again, the group based DN is Big Bang Theory. Group name attribute is CN, which has the group name DB2 IADM in it. and there is a group lookup method. There are two methods available. We are just using the search by DN method. Okay, and the group lookup attribute is member. Okay, so this I have shown you in the LDAP entries, right? So this is how it is set up. And for debugging also there are some values, like you can set up like debug equal to true if you want to throw some extra information, dump some extra information into the dialog, then you can put debug equal to true also. Okay, so this is a typical configuration of the INI file. So once this is already done, so the INI file configuration is already with us. Okay, so now I can start and activate the database again. Okay, so let it happen. So once that is done, what is going to happen is the user authentication and group lookup both will be done by LDAP plugin. So any OS user cannot connect to the database now, right? So when I say DB2 connect to test user DB2 NS2 using DB, this is a OS user and OS password, this will not work. Okay, let's check that. So the database is all activated. Security processing got failed. Okay, that will not work. So I have to connect using a LDAP user name and password, which is connect to test user DB2 NS1 using LDAP DB2 NS1. Okay, then it should get connected. Yes, it got connected. See, this is the SQL authorization ID. This can be different also. This is what was configured in the INI file. So the user ID attribute is this, whereas the authorization attribute is this. Since we have used both the same, it is coming DB2 NS1, DB2 NS1. It can be different also. Okay. So we have connected as LDAP user. Then we'll get the authority and we will do the connect reset. Okay. So the authority should be like he should have DB IADM sysadm access because he is belonging to sysadm, right? In the LDAP side also it is configured that way. Okay. So we have connect reset it. The next thing is we'll be using connect to penny. Okay, connect to the database using user penny using pvat. Now this connection again will not happen because it's a OS user password I am giving, so it will not happen. I have to give the LDAP user. So connect to test user penny using LDAP penny. Then again I am getting the authority. Now look at this important point. When the authentication happens as LDAP user, the authority will be now the penny user will get the sysadm access as well. That is the important thing because the group lookup is happening at the LDAP side. Let's verify that. Sysadm got the say penny user is the user, LDAP user. She got the sysadm access on this, right? So this is important thing because the group lookup happened on the LDAP side. If it was like OS side, she will not get the access. She will not get the sysadm access, I mean authority. Okay, now that is case 2. Okay, now case 3 is where you are using the LDAP plugin for authentication alone, and you are using the OS services for group lookup. So which means that user ID penny should not get sysadm access because as per the OS she is just a normal user, she is not instance owner group. Okay, so she should not get sysadm access, but at the same time you cannot connect to penny user also. You have to connect using only LDAP penny user. Okay, so let me just demonstrate that. So for that we'll update the DBM parameters accordingly, stop and start the database and again activate the database. So here is where we are saying like for user authentication use the LDAP plugin, but for group lookup null, which means use the OS. So copy this, paste it. Okay, activating the database, everything done, clear. Okay, now let us, so if I connect now user inst1 using inst1, this is like a OS user. But since the authentication is happening at the LDAP plugin level, it won't get connected. Okay. Yes, so it did not get connected. Now this one will get connected because it is a LDAP user. Okay, and this particular LDAP user has sysadm access because that's how it is set up in the LDAP. Now if I connect using pennyviad, again it will not get connected. Okay, if I connect using LDAP penny, it will get connected. See, it got connected. And also look at the sysadm. See, sysadm is not it says like, you know, sysadm is not available because for authentication we are using the LDAP user penny, whereas the group lookup is happening at the OS level. So from OS level, she is not considered as a sysadm access. That's it. Okay, that's the significant thing here. Okay, and also we can connect like this also. See, we saw in the tutorial somewhere before, right? We created a granted the access DB access to a user called as Scooper, but that Scooper user is not available in OS. He is available in LDAP, and you can connect to the test using like this cn equal to Sheldon using Scooper. That's his password. So for authentication, it will go through the LDAP, and he'll be granted DB access as well because we have granted that, and but he'll be considered as a public user only. So there is no group that is available with him at the OS level, so it will be treated as a public user. Okay, let's just copy that, verify that. Okay, see here, he got the DB access. See here, okay, that's because we granted him directly to Scooper. And look at this thing here. So cn equal to Sheldon, like that also you can connect because it is connecting to the LDAP for authentication, and the group lookup is happening at the OS side. So as there is no user like Scooper, so he'll be treated like a public user. Okay, public group. So whatever the public access is there, it's available for him also. That's it. Okay, now this is the last case wherein user authentication is at the OS level, but the group lookup is happening at the plugin level. Okay, so like that we are interchanging that stuff now. So copy this again and paste it. So all the DBM CFG parameters are updated. The data instance is stop, restart, then activate database is also completed. Now if I connect using LDAP user, it will not get connected because authentication is by OS. It will not get connected because I am not using LDAP authentication, I am using only OS authentication. So this one should connect, and I am getting the authority also. So it got connected, and it will have sysadm access because at the OS level also it is having, right? So okay, now the next thing is the same we'll repeat for the user penny. So LDAP penny will not get connected because the user authentication happens at the OS level, so that did not get connected. Now penny user got authenticated. Now this one is we are trying to connect using the OS user. Look at the authority here. Now she should get the sysadm authority because authentication will happen at the OS level, but the group lookup will happen at the plugin level, LDAP plugin level. So authenticated, yes, and look at the sysadm access, she got it. Even though as a OS user, this particular user does not belong to that group, it is not using the OS, so it is using the LDAP plugin for group lookup. That's why that penny user got the access sysadm. That's how it is set up in the LDAP. So that's the configuration we made here, right? So this is how they can be interchangeable. So authentication is different, group lookup is different, they can be interchanged using these plugins, and this is the So this is how the LDAP plugin can be utilized. Okay, it's a very fairly simple process, and even the you can connect like this also. You can give a directory entry like this, and you can connect using this also. Okay, that's it from this video tutorial. Thanks. Please subscribe to my channel DB2 LUW Academy. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.